Hello everyone, in this video we're going to set up a basic React development environment in Docker, and we're also going to I'm going to try to make it complete, or at least allow you to be able to install packages without having problems with like package lock JSON file or anything like that. So I've tested this and it works and I can install packages, but eventually we're going to get to a separate server or API environment, so like Node.js and Express and GraphQL Mongo, but that's going to be a separate video. So let's go ahead and get started. Please subscribe to our channel and click on the bell for notifications for more programming tutorials, and I will see you inside. And we'll do make dir the development environment that you want. So I'm going to call it React Dev Docker, and then we'll change into it. So React Dev Docker. And then we'll open up the code folder and we'll create a test file. So I'm going to do a new file and I'm going to call it UI. Oops, a new folder. So new folder, we're going to call it UI, and then inside of this UI we'll create a text or a test.txt file. Okay, I zoomed that in for a sec to make it easier to see. And okay, so we have our UI and our test.txt file. So the first thing that we want to do is be able to get the code into our container. And so over here in our terminal, we'll want to run docker run -it, and we use it because we want to be able to exec into the container so we can poke around and see the files. And then we also want to remove the container afterwards, so rm, or which basically cleans things. And so we're going to set a volume to mount our local code on our local computer into the container, the code into the container. So we'll do -v, and then on the left side of this volume is our code on our computer. So I'm on Windows right now, so we do pwd. You'll have to figure out the equivalent of this in Mac or Linux if you're using those, but I'll leave that up to you. And so then from our present working directory, we don't want to copy everything. We just want to copy the code that's in our UI folder. So we'll do that weird slash thing that Windows has, and then we'll do UI to get just the code in the UI folder. And then because the container is going to be a Linux container, we do the typical /, I think it is, but no, that's a backslash, I don't know, /app. And then we're going to use the Node Alpine image. So Node, and I'm not going to do the latest, I'm going to use the one that was working for me earlier. So I'm going to do 13.12.0-Alpine. And then we're going to run this command, which will give us our shell in the container. So if we run this, now you can see that we're inside of our container. And so we'll do ls, and then we can see what's inside the app, and we can see that we have our test.txt file. So that's good. And the next step would be to let's actually create a React app. So we'll exit out of the container, and then we will delete our UI, and then we can do npx create react -app UI. And so that will create a React app with UI, or with the name of UI. That's going to put it all in here, and then we'll want to mount that into our container as well. So we'll test that in just a sec once it's finished loading. And then what I'd like to do also while we're waiting is create a docker ignore file. So new file .docker-ignore, and then we're going to want to ignore the node modules, but not all of the node modules, just the ones in the UI folder. So UI/node_modules, and then UI build if you end up building. I'm not sure how that's going to work in the future, but I'm going to work on that soon. And then we're also going to want to do UI package-lock.json. And so this one's another questionable one. I've had issues where the node version is different on my computer than it is on the Docker container, and so I find that difficult to keep in sync. So I just want to ignore the package-lock.json file and then let the Docker container create the package lock itself. So it's going to grab the package.json file and then it'll create its own package lock. So I kind of like that setup. You can play around with it however you like, but I'm going to pause it and I'll see you when this is completed. Okay, so this is done, and now we can go ahead and let's verify that this still works. So we can run the same command that we did earlier, docker run, pull in the UI code into the app, and we'll hit go. And it's not going to ignore, it's not going to use the docker ignore, I'm pretty sure, until we actually start using the docker compose, but we'll do an ls app to see that we have our node modules, our package.json, all of the React code. So the problem at this point that we're facing is that just like with a local development environment, you need to run npm install and npm start and to actually start the server and actually be able to access, you know, changes in the code and start the environment. So we need to be able to do that, but this node Alpine image does not do that by default. So we need to do that ourselves. So we're going to base our own image off of Alpine, and then we're going to run npm start and all of that, and install React scripts, etc. So let's go ahead and exit out of the container, and then we will create our own Docker file. So new Docker file, and then we're going to pull from the image. So from node 13.12.0 -alpine, or you could just do the latest. That would probably be recommended actually. I'll play with that after I am done with this video, and then we're gonna set the working directory. That's a comment, and we're gonna do workdir /app. And so that will be, so this is going to put us into the app directory. And then from there, I don't actually know what this does or if it's important, but I do remember having issues. So I'm just going to add this, and then you can play around with removing it if you want. But path app /node_modules/.bin : path. So I guess the node modules folder has a .bin, and it needs to be added to the path of the container for some reason. I'm not exactly sure what that's all about, but I'm just gonna leave that up to you to figure out if you want to. So add app, and now we need to copy all of the code from our UI into this app directory. And so copy ./UI./ so that takes all the UI code and puts it into our app folder, because at this point we're still in the app folder. So we've got that copied over, and then once we do that, then we can run the npm install. So run npm install, and then we also need to make sure that React scripts is installed, because the package.json file relies on React scripts, so we need to make sure that's installed. So run npm install React-scripts at 3.4.1-g. It's a global package, and so you may also want to just install the latest. I don't know, you'll have to play around with that as well. And then once we have React scripts installed and all of our packages installed, then we can run the command that will do like npm start, because that's how you would start a React app normally. So let's do start app, comment here, and then we'll do cmd, which will be the command that we run. So npm and then start. So that should be good for this. So we'll save that Docker file, and then I'm going to close that out as well. And then we can create our own image. Actually, I'll open it back up. We can create our own image, and we'll use that image instead of this Node Alpine. So this image is based off of Node Alpine, but it has the other stuff that we need. So now we can do the same thing that we did earlier, but instead of this Node Alpine, we're going to use our own. Oh, and actually, I forgot we need to build the image first. So I'm just going to get rid of all of that. Or not. Okay, so we're going to need to build our own image. So docker build -t, and I'm going to call it test123 because and then this dot is going to be the current directory's Docker file. So we're in react-dev-docker, and that has its Docker file here. So that's dot is going to use this Docker file. So there we go. And then it's going to run npm install and all of that stuff. And so I will see you in a minute or two once this is done. Okay, so now that we have the image created, we can run the same command that we did earlier, only instead of using this Node Alpine that does not do the npm start and the other things that we set up in the Docker file, we can remove that and we can swap it out with the image that we created. So which in our case, or my case, is test123. So test123. And then another thing that we have to do is so this sh command here is going to override this command npm start. So we want to get rid of that. So I am going to do that just like that. And then let's see here. There was one other thing, and that is, because we're running npm start, we have to connect to the port. So on the container, it starts at port 3000 by default, React does. So we need to connect our port to the port in the container. So we can do that with a -p, and I'm going to do this after this this volume. So -p, and then we're going to say our port on the local machine is 3001, and then colon, and then on the container side it's 3000. And then one more thing, so just to kind of make things quicker, so setting an environment variable with -e, and then there's a use polling, so I'll just type it out. Chokidar _use polling equals true, and let me make this a little larger. Okay, so chokidar use polling equals true will allow us to make changes to our code on the local machine and have it change automatically. So it's basically polling for changes. So we'll hit enter. And then so now it's going to be running a React script start. Okay, so it looks like it's done. So let's go to our browser. And the one downside about this is you have to manually go to localhost. So 3001, and it looks like everything's working. So let's go back to our text editor and try to make a change. So src app.js. Hello, we'll save, and then go back to our text editor, or our browser, and we can see the change has been updated. So that's really good. We're all set up except the fact that we're not using Docker Compose, and we haven't tested an installation of a new package. So I'm going to move this over to the side, and we'll go back to our browser terminal, and I'm going to hit Control-C, and then make sure there's no containers running. Okay, so we're good there. Now we'll want to create our Docker Compose file. So let's shrink all these down. We'll add a new file, docker-compose.yml, and we basically just have to do the same exact thing that we have here and put it into a Docker Compose. So let's set that up, and I'm going to use version 3.7, and services are going to be UI : I'm assuming that you know most of this, or at least have a general idea of what's going on. This is like the container name or the service name or something. So it's basically how you reference this container. So the service is the container basically. So we're going to say container name is React. And I'm not exactly sure the difference between these two, so I apologize for that, but I'll figure that out and then talk about it in the next video, I guess. So build and context with a dot is going to be the current directory for, oh yes, the Docker file. So that's going to be using this Docker file. So yeah. And then we're going to say the name of the Docker file is Docker file. Oh, that was my problem earlier. Okay, so capital D. Make sure that's a capital D. My prettier, oh, I don't know why I did that. Prettier, I don't know. Somehow I got switched to a lowercase d. So anyway, Docker file. And then in our, on the same indentation as build, we're going to have volume. So volumes and a hyphen, and then we're going to say the UI folder goes into the app folder on the container, and then our port, so ports, and we're going to say 3001 is going to map to 3000 on the container. And then our environment is going to be, we're going to have one environment variable, and it's going to be chokidar underscore use polling equals true. And then we're going to save that. And then we should just be able to run docker compose. So inside of our React Dev Docker, we can do docker-compose up-build. And this -build is important, especially when you change a package or when you add a new package. But anyway, let's go ahead and run this and give it a try. Crossing our fingers, and hopefully it will work. Okay, so it's going to run npm install, so I'm going to pause it for a second. Oh, and one thing I forgot to point out is that you can see that the docker ignore, so right here, load docker ignore. So now it's going to ignore the millions of files that are going to be inside your node modules as the package gets larger. So it'll ignore that, and then it's going to run npm install, which will create its own package lock and package, or not, package lock, and then also the node modules. So it's going to create its own from in the container. So that is faster than copying everything over, and it reduces the chances of errors because of npm version differences and all that kind of stuff. So I've had a lot of problems with that when I was first trying to start this. But anyway, see you in a sec. Okay, unfortunately I had a problem, and I think hopefully I can figure this out. So it says it's already in use. So let's close out and docker ps-a. Okay, and so I have something else that I need to close out. So you might not have this problem. So docker stop 61a38, which is the name of the container. Okay, so now I'm going to try again, and hopefully it'll work. Oh no. Okay, actually it's because it's all docker ps-a. So yeah, I already have a container with that name. So I'm going to run this command, remove all containers. That's in my notes. So anyway, so I got that. So now, hopefully, docker compose up the build. Okay. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so it's back up and running. So luckily that did seem to work. Okay, so we have our browser here. Let's make another change. So we'll go back to our app.js and say learn things. So we'll save that and then refresh. And it does seem like it takes a minute with just to get started, but once everything's like all set up, then it will be pretty quick. So I'm hoping, it says it's compiling, so let's give it a second. Okay, so it says it compiled successfully, so let's go back. Okay, so it says learn things, and let's see if it's faster this time. Learn things again. save, and learn thing again. Okay, so now we're set up to start coding, and you're gonna end up being like, okay, well, now I need to install a package. So what you'll wanna do is you'll wanna close the container. You can run Control-C or in another terminal, docker-compose down, and then we'll wanna go into our UI folder, and I'm gonna install material UI /core. Hopefully that'll only take a second. Okay, so once that's done, we'll go back to our root directory. So docker-compose up -- build. And then now it's going to create it, but it's going to run in npm install, and it's going to copy all of our contents from our app, which includes the package.json, and then it's going to ignore the node modules because of our docker ignore file, and then it will create its own package lock.json and its own node modules, and then it will start up, hopefully, and then we should be able to use material UI core. So while this is going, I'm going to pull it over to the side, and I'm going to save some time here. So I'm going to go to our text editor. And I hope that while it's building, it doesn't mess up if I add something. So we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to do an import button from material UI core. And then we're going to use the button underneath this A tag here. So button hello there, and I believe it's variant equals contained and a color of secondary. So I don't want to break anything, so I'm just going to wait to save it until after it's done. Okay, so everything looks like it's back up, so let's go back to our text editor and hit save with our button all set up. And then we go back to our browser, hit refresh. Okay, and we can see our material UI button is all set up and ready to go. So we can now add new packages to our development environment and continue coding. So the next step is to set up an API when I'll be using Mongo and all of that. So I'm going to do that in the next video though. So please subscribe if you're interested in setting up a more comprehensive environment, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day and hope this was helpful.
Thank you for watching our video. If you found it helpful, please click on the second link in the description to sign up for our newsletter, where we send our best content to help you improve your skills and stay up to date in the industry. Please subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button below and the bell to be notified when we release new tutorials. That's all for this video, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.